Hari Om, everyone. Welcome to our workshop tonight on Vedanta Applied. We're really excited to have a bit of a unique workshop tonight where we're going to be spotlighting some of our seekers and having them share some of their own personal experiences of how they're applying Vedanta. And also have some time for reflection for you all to think about how you're applying Vedanta in your life. And really at the core of tonight's discussion is, we hear a lot in some of the feedback from our community that, I'm attending a lot of lectures, I'm attending camps, but sometimes I don't know how to put into practice all that I'm learning. And I want to be able to put it into practice and really be able to bring Vedanta to the many facets of my life. And so that's really what tonight is all about. And we're actually going to be thinking about applying Vedanta across 5 dimensions. And we're going to cover today, and we're going to have some of our community share some personal stories of how they're applying Vedanta to these dimensions of their life. So we're going to start with thinking about the self, which is really at the core of Vedanta, your personal growth. How you're applying Vedanta to your family relationships. So maybe taking care of aging parents, maybe it's with children, siblings, etc. Thinking about applying Vedanta in your relationships, whether that's with a significant other, in your friendships, in your profession, which we've talked about in previous workshops as well. So applying Vedanta to the work that you're doing day to day. And then also applying Vedanta in your community. So whether that's through the mentorship sangha or other sort of communities that you're a part of. So that's really what we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to start with some of our seekers sharing their personal stories. We'll do a bit of reflection ourselves to think about how are we applying Vedanta in these facets. And then we'll do some small group discussion before announcements and concluding. So with that, I'd love to start with Lavanya, who's going to be sharing about applying Vedanta to the self.
Here I am, everyone. Can you all hear me okay? Okay, awesome. So in the realm of Vedanta applied to the self, I'm going to speak on two areas of my relationship with myself, which Vedanta has played a great role in improving, that may seem contrary to what society and secular work would tell us. The first is self-growth. From a secular society standpoint, this can seem like it's all about setting flashy goals. It feels like it's all about more, more, more. From climbing the corporate ladder to having many friends, a big house, fancy vacations, buying as many fancy items as possible, and having a social media perfect relationship and family. This is what society tells us will lead us to a successful life. Personally, some days I find it hard not to give in to this idea. But as a seeker, when I set goals and aspirations, I think about the higher and highest purpose. Is this helping me in my journey towards independent joy? Will this help me foster my relationship with the trust triangle? Am I focusing on oneness in family, community, society, humanity over division and competition? This requires long-term thinking, the path of Shreyas over Preyas, not making decisions that will be easy, enjoyable, and people-pleasing in the short term, but will serve me for many years, independent joy in this lifetime, and breaking free from the cycle of rebirth. Self-growth to me looks like stepping outside of my comfort zone in a safe space. For example, this year I am trying running from the mind. I know taking care of my body physically is long-term thinking. The more I exercise and stay physically healthy, the less I have to think about my body. But it's in a safe space, a community that values personal best rather than competition. Self-care is another one that I have had to redefine for myself as a seeker. Most people, when they think about self-care, it's massages, fancy vacations, anything extravagant. From my experience, while in the moment these things are great, afterwards I'm left tired and dreading returning to my responsibilities rather than being recharged and ready to embrace. I am a firm believer in rest. I know good sleep is essential to my well-being, but I don't think about rest, sleep, food as extravagance, but what my equipment needs to fulfill my responsibilities effectively and efficiently. I don't necessarily need an expensive massage or fancy vacation, but on some weekends, I prioritize alone time and say no to socializing in order to recharge. I go on a simple coffee date with myself or spend time in nature. This helps me come back to my responsibilities with a fresh body and mind. For me, sadhana is self-care. I found it easy that when life gets demanding with responsibilities, I let go of my sadhana, my time for reflection and internalization. This is something I'm actively working to cultivate, specifically with my mentee, actually. In reality, having dedicated time for quietude of mind and remembrance of the higher, the highest purpose is true self-care. So that was my sharing on self. And now I'm going to pass it to Deepal to speak a little bit about family. Hari Om.
Thanks, Lavanya. Hari Om, everyone. I'm going to talk about, can you hear me okay? Yes, okay. Today my topic is on, specifically it is family, but specifically on caregiving. And this is a spectrum between, kids versus aging parents. And so when I was thinking about this, I first have to approach both spectrums with self-development, like my own self-development and being centered in my own spiritual nature. And if I'm centered myself, and that's when I can give more to others. And I feel that very much so with being a parent. I have two little kids. I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. And as every stage has been different so far, and I know it's going to continue to be different, but having that balance within myself is when I feel that I'm most able to give the best as a parent. And one way I feel that I've narrowed down how to, be a better parent is having a balance between, being practical and being sensitive. I think one or the other, too much of one or the other makes it very difficult. And so just having this fine balance, and with, like, for example, being a parent, the first thing I have to always remind myself is that they are not mine. They're Bhagwan's kids, and they come from Bhagwan, and they're a gift to me to take care of. And I think with that perspective, it really kind of helps me to detach and not, be so attached to all the things that they do and the results. And I just want, the main goal is for them to be happy. And so, for example, when they were toddlers, I felt that, the balance was they couldn't express themselves. So when they were speaking to me, they would sometimes cry and scream. And so I had to be a little bit sensitive in understanding that they couldn't express themselves verbally. And practically, I had to do whatever I could as a parent to help them during that time. But I also learned from Vivekji that between the ages of 0 to 5 is when you just pour them with love, just pour the love to them and just be there. And then after that, the next stage is discipline. And that's where my kids are right now, between the ages of 7 and 9. And I feel that now it's different. I do have to really make sure that I have that fine balance of practicality and sensitivity. And I can give you an example just at the top of my head that, like all kids, they love screens. They love watching TV. They like playing video games. And for me, I feel like I have to have a fine balance, as I understand that they are kids and they enjoy these things, that I still have to be a parent. So something that my husband and I do is that, they don't get screens during the week, during the school week, but on the weekends, they do get some limited amount. So that's that fine balance. And then also, another is like, school and things that they run into, like sometimes they fight with each other. I have to remember that, I can't just hover all the time and be that helicopter mom. I just kind of back off. I let them solve, their own problems, unless they're hitting, of course, that's different. But just having that fine balance, it also helps me to kind of have a little bit of peace of mind. And then on the other spectrum, I also have aging parents, and they do live near me, and so do my husband's parents. So we have to use that same practical and sensitive balance with them. And it is different. And with aging parents, I feel that I kind of go into it as I have to always remember the gratitude I have for them, all the things that they've done for us. They came from another country, just probably like many of your parents, and they struggled. They had a lot more struggles than we do. So I do have to remember that, and I have so much gratitude for that. And that's the first thing I try to remember whenever there is any sort of disagreement or anything like that. And again, with balancing between practicality and sensitivity, I do have to remember that they grew up in a different generation. Things were different when they were growing up. And I think sometimes when they do speak to us, they tend to kind of come from their perspective. And what I'm trying to do is just understand that they mean well and they love us, but sometimes the age difference is there, and there may be some things that just don't apply in my life currently. And so, like, I'll give an example. I recently went to a retreat in DC, and I think, my mom had sort of made a comment about, oh, you're leaving Ganesh and you're leaving the kids, and like they can't do it without you. And I think that's just the mentality they come from. And instead of reacting, I just listen. I listen to them and I nod my head, and I do hear what they're saying. But in the end, it's between Ganesh and I, what we're choosing to do, the decisions that I make, and what's practical for our family. And so I think with aging parents, it's just, they all mean well. They just sometimes, they're used to being a parent, and so they just are a little more blunt at times. But it's all out of love. And so I just have that perspective, and it really helps me to have a better relationship with them. And there's no arguing, there's no trying to prove that they're wrong or anything like that. So I hope that helped. And those are just some of the things that I do to keep a balance between me and my kids and me and my parents. Oh, and I'll pass it to Janani.
Hariam, are you able to speak or hear me okay?
Yeah.
I heard my own audio, so I got a little confused there. But yes, thank you, Deepal. I think that's going to be kind of hard to follow up. But my topic is going to be friendships, dating, who you surround yourself with intentionally. So my first thought I thought I would speak about is friendships. And I'm sure all of our parents told us when we were very little, like choose your friends wisely. It's important to surround yourself with good people. Maybe even they took it a little too far and kind of compared you to cousins or friends who were doing something better than you or seemingly more successful than you. But I think in general, the idea that they were trying to teach us is satsang. Be around like-minded individuals who can inspire you to be more and do more and be a better human being. And so that was, I guess, one of my earliest teachings that I got from my parents that helped make me like a better person. And then something that I also felt like was that I would always be taken advantage of, especially through high school, through college. I always felt like I was kind of being used as a doormat. And it took a very big like mentality switch sometime during college to realize, no, like if I'm giving someone my time or resources or effort, I'm the one giving. Like I'm not having anyone ever take that away from me. And it's not necessarily about boundary setting, but it's just about realizing my own value, my worth, and realizing what I have to be able to offer to other people. And so that was a very difficult lesson to learn, but I think it was going through, like different group discussions on the satsangs that I really realized like the giver has the upper hand. Like they're the ones who give, and then the receiver, if they're in a place to receive, they can take that. So that's kind of a way that I've started to think a little bit differently about my friendships as well. And the third thing about friendships is never try to like be someone's friend, just be friendly. And people will just like naturally gravitate towards you. I guess I have like a best friend that I consider my best friend outside of my family. But outside of that, like I don't really think of it as like tiers of friends. I just feel like everyone is out there to be like friends with me. And I think that's like in general a really nice attitude that I've been able to develop, because I think it makes me more approachable. It makes me less intimidated by other people. I just think we're all human beings. Like just try to see the one in all of us and just be approachable, and people will also be approachable for you. So those are my thoughts about friendship. Now, dating, I thought this was important enough to bring up because I think it's relatable for a lot of different people. And whether it be for yourself, for your kids, or for siblings, yes, we're all here for my dating advice. Let me dish it out for you guys. I'll just preface that Vivekji has influenced a lot of my dating. So a lot of what I'm about to say is going to be coming actually from Vivekji, because me and him have had many a conversation about the woes of dating in the 21st century. One of the first things that I'll pretty much directly take out of Vivekji's book is 80% compatibility, 20% adaptability. There has to be some level of shared interests, but after that, like beyond that, you just have to realize like that flexibility and adaptability in the other person is going to be like the #1 trait that you have to look for. However, it also comes with the caveat of you have to be adaptable yourself. Because if you're not adaptable, then you're not really allowing for a successful friendship or relationship, right? And so that was kind of a lesson that I've learned over the years, that I should just keep striving to be more and more adaptable. I shouldn't lose myself of who I am at the core, but at the same time, if I'm able to kind of just like let the small stuff slip, I can focus on the bigger things. And those rise to the forefront of, hey, this person did this, and I think that's really cool. It's a small thing, but it shows like, you know, a big part of their personality, and I'm able to see the smaller things, let the more superficial frou-frou things go. My dad also taught me when I was very young that the source of all human conflict is miscommunication. And that kind of sounds like chapter 1 and 2 of Bhagavad Gita to me a little bit. But I think he's right, because we just don't communicate properly. Things fall through the cracks and our egos get in the way, and then there's conflict. And so my communication style at this point is to err on over communication, because I think that that would be better than under. And if I'm seeking some sort of validation from my partner, I do ask, hey, I'm asking for some over communication. I'm seeking a little bit of validation. Are you able to provide that for me? And I've found that in communicating that with my partner, we've gotten over these little hills of potential conflict a lot more gracefully. And so, sorry, I'm at the airport. Sorry if you guys can hear that overhead, but oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm just gonna let that pass, hopefully in a couple seconds here. Okay, so communication. Oh, okay, you can't hear it that much. Good, thanks, guys. And the third thing I would say is, I think contemplation has been incredibly pivotal in my dating adventures. I think as I've learned my own mind and the way that I am responding to situations, I've been able to predict more easily what my partner would be thinking in their situation. So let's say I'm realizing that my partner is getting a little bit more easily annoyed by something. And I'm like, I'm not being that annoying, am I? Like, so first I think like to myself, am I being annoying? Then I think, no, not any more than usual. Like, this is kind of weird. His response is kind of weird. Why is he being so irritable? And then I kind of go to the basics of like what you do to take care of a plant. Like, is he getting enough sunshine? Is he watered? Is he fed? Did he sleep okay? Or is he just not having enough me time by himself? Is he pushing too much onto himself? And so I'm realizing as I put myself into his shoes, I'm able to predict why something is off, because it's how I would react. People. Yeah, and so I think it is very important to learn your own mind in order to be able to understand someone else's mind. I think that's that. If anyone wants to chat about dating, I'm always down, because it is so difficult, you guys. But I think be yourself, know your mind, and communicate. And I think you can go really far. Oh, I will say one more thing. I will say one thing I've done is kind of just be unapologetically myself. Say I'm looking for something serious. Say, hey, I'm vegetarian. Is that going to bother you? Like just be upfront, because I feel like as you're like holding back before you peel off the layers, you're just kind of like wasting everyone's time, you know. And I have found that the people who feel that that's a little aggressive aren't ready for me anyways. Whereas if I'm just unapologetically myself, the right person will accept me as I am. Okay, that's all. I will pass on the baton to Pooja.
Awesome. Thank you, Janani. Um, I'm going to talk about applying Vedanta to your profession. So that's for many of us, we're in the weeds of some sort of work, 40 hours plus. And so it's a big part of our lives. And just for context, I work at a tech company as a user researcher. And a couple of guiding principles for me in applying Vedanta to my profession, I would love to share with you all. So, one of the big ones is thinking about work as worship. And this is actually a saying, work is worship, that Swami Brahmapananda from the Vedanta Society, he used to come to our home often and share this. And that message really, really struck me. And it's so pertinent now, having been in the work world. I can't believe I'm saying this, for 15 years. My views on work have very much evolved. As the more you're in it, the more you're doing it. And thinking about work really as an opportunity for growth and development. Every day is an opportunity to be challenged in some way and to really think about how to react, how to treat other people, and how to do the right thing. And I think initially, I always thought in the work world, I tried to avoid challenges, tried to put myself in situations that are a little bit easier. But I feel like as I, spent more time in the work world, I've realized that these challenges are just a part of the day to day. And in fact, sometimes, viewing them as fun and a little bit of like an adventure, can make it a little bit easier. And so an example, for me is, sometimes I'll be on a call with someone, like a work call, a work conference, a work meeting, and I'll be frustrated with the way someone's behaving, maybe where they're at in the project timeline, maybe the amount of attention they're giving something or not. And I think initially I would have just felt frustrated with the other person. And what I'm able to do now with this larger philosophy as work as worship is, really take a step back and say, yeah, sure, this challenge is real. I'm actually experiencing it, but it's really up to me how I want to react. So how do I want to react? How do I want to start to apply the principles of Vedanta to calmly address the situation? And another, big principle for me that Vedanta has taught me is really detachment and, being balanced and equanimity. So, really putting in perspective where work fits in your life. I think a lot of times when you're in the heat of working, I find this working from home as well. It can feel all encompassing, like it's completely takes over all your thinking, and it can feel like it takes over your whole life, because if you're working from home, you may not be interacting with a lot of people, you may not be out in the world as much, and so it can feel so impressing and so important. But I think being able to detach, take a step back, and have some perspective, I feel like this background maybe helps me do that as well, is a great way to apply Vedanta. Like, where does work fit into my life? And you kind of zoom out a little bit, like, oh wow, the world is much bigger than this one company, than this one meeting. There's so much, there's so much more to life, and just big picture, there's so much more to this universe. And if you want to get even bigger picture, I'm just a piece of dust in this universe. So I think that sometimes helps me just get a little bit of perspective. And then, two more ideas I'd love to share. The last one is empathy. And we hear a lot about empathy. I recently was part of a leadership training, and we did an exercise in empathy. And the idea was very simple, like put yourself in someone else's shoes. So when you're on that work call and you're feeling frustrated with someone, think about the challenges that they're going through. Maybe they're trying to prepare for something else. Maybe they're trying to impress their boss. Maybe they're vying for a promotion. Maybe they had a really bad day at home, right? Like think about what might be behind the way that somebody is acting, which I think is a great exercise. I found a lot of value in doing that and not just putting my own assumptions on the situation of what's happening. But I think where I see a lot of opportunity to apply Vedanta is really just seeing the divinity in everyone, seeing the humanity in everyone. Like, hey, this person is going through things. They have real emotions. They may, they may have other goals in mind that I can't see. And how do I see the goodness in them, and see the divinity in them? And that, I think that just makes work way more human, and makes, working with other people way more human. And then the last thing I wanted to share, when we were thinking about this bucket of profession, it's a sort of a slightly different anecdote, but I feel like being a part of Chick has really been instrumental in building my career. And why I say this is I feel like I was a part of Chick Chicago for many years. Back when I graduated college in 2008 and beyond, we had a lot of activity, a lot of retreats, a lot of opportunities for Seva. And we really built a strong Chick Chicago group, a strong committee. And I think that leadership opportunity really shaped me as a leader in the workplace. It really built my skills. And so, things like how to motivate people and get them excited about some sort of higher vision, how to deal with, a different generation of Sevaks and Sevikas in my local mission, and sometimes some of the politics of being a Chick trying to do activity in a mission, skills like project management, growing an organization, etc. So sometimes I think some of the biggest leadership lessons I learned were actually through this community of Chick and CSK. And so those are some examples of how Vedanta and the mission has really affected my professional life in very profound ways. Awesome. Okay. With that, thank you for giving me this opportunity to share. I'd love to, Lavanya is going to share a little bit on our last dimension, and then we're going to jump into an activity.
Everyone, just to close out our sharing, we did want to touch a little bit about community. We foster a safe space to learn, grow, and have deep and authentic relationships. That's really what Mentorship Sangha is all about. So even when we were planning this workshop, we really wanted to hit on topics that we could all talk about openly and feel like we can relate to each other. So community building and just having that deep and authentic sharing that Vivekji talks about is something that is really the basis of our program. So happy to have all of you here, and Pooja is going to walk us through some reflection and breakout group discussion topics.
Discussion groups. There we go. Think about one, if you didn't have an opportunity to share with your group, maybe one application across these 5 dimensions. Since you won't have time to go through them all, if you just want to share one application. And then also, where is there a gap for you? Where is there, an area that you really struggled, that you said, oh, I had a hard time putting a Post-it under self or community or profession? We'll do those 2 questions. And the third question we can maybe have for reflection post this session.
Okay. All right. So thank you everyone for participating in this workshop. It was, I think, most really fruitful in terms of hearing practical ways to apply Vedanta into our day-to-day life, spanning a lot of different topics that relate to all of us. And just want to express our gratitude to Vivekji for joining us. Vivekji's just commuting from Cleveland, I think, back to Niagara, and still making the time to be with us in satsang. So just want to express our gratitude and Hari Om to Vivekji.
That's all. Thank you. Before Lavanya does the closing, thanks everyone for your reflections and thoughts. It was great to have an interactive session, and also posting, for reflection this week. Think about one action that you might take to apply Vedanta to one of the dimensions that you felt like was a gap area. So is there anything you can do to apply it to maybe an area that it was tough to apply it to? And with that, Lavanya, if you want to take us through a final Om in conclusion.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. And we have a lot of really cool workshops coming up through wellness workshops. So do stay tuned. A lot coming up. So we'll close now. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om, everyone. Be well.